That's pretty big. How much money are we talking about?
Trillions of dollars of equities across the market.
5 trillion, 20 trillion, 30 trillion, how much are we talking?
I don't know the size of the market, but it's a large number of the equity markets in the United States.
My understanding is it's at least $20 trillion. And there's,
sounds right to me.
And the other side says, nothing to look at here. Nothing to look at here, really. That seems like there's a lot to look at there, and that's why we're having this hearing. Now, what kind of advice? So their advice is followed 95% of the time, 70% of the market, over $20 trillion. What kind of advice are they giving?
Folks, buckle up, because what we're diving into today is nothing short of a corporate coup happening right under our noses, and most Americans don't even know it. This isn't about Wall Street greed. This isn't just about money. This is about power. Power over companies, over our retirement funds, over you, the American people. I just finished watching the latest hearing, and let me tell you, what we're witnessing is a legalized scam that would make the mafia jealous. Let's break it down.
It's back. Now recognize the chairman of the full committee, Mr. Jordan, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Crane, what percentage of publicly traded equity shares are held by institutional investors and pension funds?
It's a very large percentage. I forget the exact number. It's north of 80, I believe.
80%? And because of that, most shareholder votes are cast through proxy voting because the shareholder can. Is that right?
That's exactly correct.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And proxy advisors advise or recommend to the institutional investors and the pension funds how they're supposed to vote. Is that right?
That's correct.
And is their advice followed?
Pardon?
Is their advice followed? Is the proxy advisor's advice typically followed by the institutional investors and the pension funds?
It's absolutely followed, and in many cases, their shares are automatically cast by the proxy firms in line with those recommendations.
So, so the institutional investors and pension fund are doing exactly what the proxy advisors had tell them.
That's exactly correct. Yes, sir.
Okay. And who are the two largest again, who we've been talking about?
ISS and Glass Lewis.
ISS and Glass Lewis. And how much of the market do they control?
97%.
97% of the market, 80% of the shareholders, the equity shares are with institutional and pension investors, and their advice is followed 95% of the time.
That's essentially correct.
Wow, that's pretty big. That's pretty big. How much money are we talking about?
Trillions of dollars of equities across the market.
5 trillion, 20 trillion, 30 trillion, how much are we talking?
I don't know the size of the market, but it's a large number of the equity markets in the United States.
My understanding is it's at least $20 trillion. And there's,
sounds right to me.
And the other side says, nothing to look at here. Nothing to look at here, really. That seems like there's a lot to look at there, and that's why we're having this hearing. Now, what kind of advice? So their advice is followed 95% of the time, 70% of the market, over $20 trillion. What kind of advice are they giving?
It's advice on everything that comes before shareholders. It's how the company is run, how the executives are paid, the shareholder proposals that have been discussed. It's everything that comes before the shareholder base for a vote.
What kind of advice are they given in a political context?
We know that ISS, for example, recommended in favor of more than 80% of ESG shareholder proposals
So
in
pro-ESG,
2023.
Pro-DEI?
As a general rule, yes. Not 100% of the time, but yes, as a general rule.
Vast majority of the time?
I would say yes.
Okay, so kind of leaning to the left, right?
I think that's probably a fair characterization.
Their advice is followed 95% of the time. They have 90% of the market. 70% of these are they're given advice to, and it's always, almost always, left wing.
I think that's a fair characterization, yes.
Is that how you see it, Mr. Egan?
I have no reason for disagreeing with that.
What about you, Mr. Griffin?
I think that while it varies by year, and we've seen sort of swings with somewhat mirroring the political election cycle,
is that an accurate picture? Is that an accurate framework?
Overall.
Okay. Now, but that's not the end of it, is it? Because it's even worse. Because this duopoly not only offers proxy advisor services, but consulting services as well.
That's exactly right.
Okay. So you can go consult with them before they give you the recommendations that are always followed. And if you don't consult with them, they might give you recommendations that in many ways harm the company and therefore harm the shareholders. Is that right, Mr. Crane?
It is, and we've seen that when companies get negative recommendations from the advice side, they'll immediately get a solicitation from the consulting side saying, hey, wouldn't you really like to have us help you out next year to avoid those negative recommendations from our friends down the hallway?
Yeah.
Pretty concerning fact pattern.
Will you pay the protection money? Will you pay the shakedown?
Exactly.
Holy cow, such a deal. Such a deal. And Ms. Minow was part of it all when she worked at ISS, is that right? The question wasn't for you, it's for Mr. Crane.
I understand that, but he doesn't know the answer, and I do.
Well, no, I wasn't asking you a question.
It is wrong. I did not allow
You might be able to do the
when I was at
consulting
ISS.
services and the
I did not
recommendations.
allow ISS to do consulting when I was
What does ISS do
president.
consulting now?
ISS does do
Well,
consulting now.
Shazam,
and
there
they're-
you have it. There you have it. My question, the way it works is the members get to ask the questions and to the people they want to give the answers. My question was to Mr. Crane. I appreciate you jumping in, Ms. Minow, and telling us that ISS does now offer consulting services in addition to the proxy advisor thing, which is the problem. Which is, well, not the full problem, but certainly part of the problem. Is that right, Mr. Crane?
I would agree with that, yes, sir.
And then you can even go maybe one step further and say on the platform, no competition's allowed, which I sort of get Ms. Minnow's argument on the Amazon issue, I sort of get, but it's almost like they got this thing rigged from start to finish, and it's two companies. And the other side says, nothing to look at here. Well, I think that's kind of ridiculous, and I appreciate the chairman and his work on this important issue. With that, I yield back.
Chairman yields back.
Over 80% of all publicly traded shares in America, that's your 401k, your pensions, your hard-earned investments, are owned by institutional investors and pension funds. And guess who tells these institutions how to vote in shareholder meetings? Two companies. Just two. ISS and Glass Lewis. That's it. No competition. No balance. Just a duopoly with unchecked power. These firms don't just give advice. They control 97% of the proxy advisory market, and their so-called recommendations are followed 95% of the time. Let me repeat that 95% of the time, your vote, your shareholder power, is cast based on what these unelected, unaccountable proxy advisors say. Not what you want. Not what your pension fund wants. What they want. And what kind of advice are they giving? Let's just say it's straight from the progressive playbook. In 2023, over 80% of ESG proposals were supported by these advisors. You know, the woke garbage pushing DI quotas, climate hysteria, and left-wing social engineering into the boardrooms of every major American company. That's not capitalism. That's not shareholder value. That's not the free market. That's ideological colonization, and it's happening behind closed doors. But it gets worse. Oh, it gets way worse. Not only do ISS and Glass Lewis tell pension funds how to vote, they also sell consulting services to the same companies they advise on. In other words, if you're a company and you don't pay them for consulting, guess what? You might suddenly find yourself with a bunch of negative proxy recommendations that scare off investors, tank your stock, and destroy your credibility. But if you pay up, if you play ball, suddenly those recommendations start looking a lot more friendly. It's a shakedown, a racket, a protection scheme dressed up in a suit and tie, waving a PowerPoint about stakeholder interests. This isn't the free market at work. This is corporate coercion, and it's targeting conservative values, free speech, and American principles at their core. And the left? The Biden administration? The media? They're pretending there's nothing to see here. Nothing to see? When trillions of dollars in market value are being influenced by two woke giants pushing ESG and DI policies onto every business in the country. Are you kidding me? And when patriots like Jim Jordan try to expose this, what happens? They get shouted down, interrupted, told to be quiet. Why? Because the elites are terrified that if the American people find out the truth, the whole thing comes crumbling down. Well, guess what? We're not being quiet. Here at Right View Nation, we're going to keep calling it out. We're going to keep peeling back the layers of this globalist woke scam until every American investor, every small business owner, and every citizen realizes just how deeply this rot goes. This is your retirement. This is your voice as a shareholder. And right now, two companies backed by radical ideology are robbing you of that voice. It's time to break the monopoly. It's time to expose the agenda. And it's time to return power to where it belongs, with the American people. If you're sick of the ESG cult, if you're tired of woke activism replacing accountability, then do me a favor. Like this video, share it, and drop a comment below telling us what you think about these proxy tyrants. And don't forget to subscribe to Right View Nation, because this is the fight of our generation, and we're not backing down. God bless you. God bless our great republic. And God bless the United States of America.